feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer!
I don't care what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the
Call
Cowboys.
this college rule!
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Dom and Chris here. A little bit of a change-up at the beginning. As we always say before every episode, go onto our social medias. Make sure you like, listen, follow, watch, subscribe to us, and keep supporting the podcast. We got a lot of quality content going on down here at Ingles Studio. And, Chris, we're back on the gridiron, and who do we got?
We got Donovan McNabb.
Donovan McNabb?
That's right.
You mean the guy from The Cosby Show? I'm loving it, Chris. I'm loving it.
Can I get my check?
It's tighter than dicks. Yeah. So Donovan McNabb, everybody, born November 25th, 1976. Donovan Jamal McNabb in Chicago, Illinois, to Sam and Wilma, an electrical engineer and a nurse. Older brother Sean. At age 8, though, they get out of the rough area of Chicago and move to the suburbs.
I saw that.
1984.
Yep.
To start better opportunities for Donovan and Sean there. His mom was not a huge fan of him playing sports, though, growing up. Did you read that? Mm-hmm. He's a very small player, but he got his metaphorical Roy Orbison on.
But, yeah, his mom didn't want him to play contact sports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess is good if you're in, like, Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, not here in America, and if you're someone who grows into his body like Donovan does.
Yeah, but he was smaller. Like, some of these guys are a lot bigger than a lot of these kids, but he was technically smaller and then had a growth spurt in high school where you're like, oh, this kid's huge.
Oh, he's going to be amazing. I did want to add, in Pee Wee football in 7th grade, he was the team's quarterback.
Oh, nice. I didn't see that. That's cool.
By 1990, he goes to Mount Carmel Catholic High School in the Chicago area. In 91, he playing quarterback, obviously.
Famous teammates, Simeon Rice.
Should be in the Hall of Fame, defensive end. And then on the basketball court, because he's also a basketball player.
That's true.
We brought it up in our Jimmy Boeheim episode.
He plays college, yeah.
He plays with NBA star Anton Walker.
Both in high school and college.
We'll get into that, he also ran track. And a lot of he... At 6'2", he's 180 now, or 200 pounds. He gets a little heavier in his NFL career. He's garnering a lot of interest, like Steve McNair. Mm-hmm. Everybody kind of wants him to come to their school and play,
and now
just not at quarterback.
There you go.
And that's quarterback.
It's such an interesting thing, even though McNair is like literally in the whatever you want to call it, like he's in the forefront of people's like, this quarterback really works.
When he's dominating at Alcorn State.
Yes.
And 2 teams want him to play quarterback. Nebraska, which at this time is a powerhouse, and Syracuse. Now, Nebraska, that would have been a tough sell for him because you're not necessarily throwing the ball a lot. And because he's very athletic. And number 2, Scott Frost is there for like another 3 years.
And I've heard this from teams that they'll get guys and they'll be like, oh, you should come here and play quarterback. Once they're there, they're just like, we're going to make you it's very common.
So Syracuse's assistants, I did read, were all excited because he reminded them of their quarterback who was just there, Marvin Graves. So they're like, this is a guy that I know we can work in our system as a quarterback. Yeah. And McNabb wanted to go there for, I believe, their broadcast journalism program.
Yeah, that's why he went there.
Because a lot of the ESPN people apparently go there. Like, sort of super famous. So in 94, even though he's just like lighting it up in practice, they want to redshirt him.
Yes.
They end up redshirting him, but have him traveling with the team and whatnot. In 95, though, holy cow. I mean, puts everyone on notice in this basketball conference. Right?
That's true.
But he's doing it on the gridiron. Big East Rookie of the Year, first team all Big East. Helps when Marvin Harrison's there, though. I mean, this is Marvin Harrison's last year there at Syracuse. Just under 2,000 passing yards and 16 touchdowns. They go 9-3 and win the Gator Bowl. So he's kind of served notice as a redshirt freshman.
Yeah. Like, but he's actually,
finished 19 overall that year, the Orange do. In 96, Big East Offensive Player of the Year. So and we'll talk about it, every single year he's getting better.
Yes.
Like he's improving. Syracuse isn't necessarily like a BYU where you're slinging it all over the field. They're like a West Coast offense, but, you know, he's learning how to play quarterback, you know. 19 touchdowns, 458 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns to go with over 1,700 passing yards. 9-3 again, and they beat Houston.
And they beat Houston
in the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah.
Big East co-champs that year. 97 Offensive Player of the Year again. They win the Big East. Almost 2,500 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 on the ground. They make one of the Alliance Bowls because they won the Big East this year. They play Kansas State, and although they lose, they win 9 games.
They win 9 games on that. Yeah, so it's a good season, and you're looking at a Syracuse that has been good in football, but I don't think has been like this good, where it's just like bowl.
No, like if you exclude like that 87 undefeated team, like they haven't been this consistently good since probably Jim Brown.
Yeah.
Since like starting in the early 90s is when they started kind of really picking it up there. Following season 98, first team All Big East, offensive player, 3 in a row. That's
offensive
so amazing.
Big East, yeah.
Over 2,100 passing yards, 22 touchdowns. Team leading 8 on the ground. Win the Big East and go to the Orange Bowl.
And they go to the Orange against the Floridas.
Against the Florida Oranges. The jerseys are on.
Against the Gators.
Oh, God. During which time, though, as we brought up in a previous episode, he plays basketball for the Orange for a couple of seasons. 4 games.
Freshman, sophomore, right?
Or
sophomore, junior, something like that, yeah.
Reserve guard. They make it all the way to the 96 national championship game where they play Kentucky. And who's on this team, Chris?
Anton Walker.
That's right.
Which is fun. I really do love that when you play with people in high school and then you're like, oh, we get to do this again.
So he was a finalist for the Heisman his senior year, finished 5th in the voting, made the Syracuse All-Century team, named the conferences, the Big East Conference, not just your teams, but a whole group of teams, Player of the Decade.
I was going to say, so Big East Offensive Player of the Decade, which you're like, that's huge.
And you're thinking, this guy's a surefire first-round pick.
Oh, yeah.
In the NFL. But he had some detractors, Chris. He had some detractors who said he played in an option offense in college, which, yes, they did run some options.
I was going to say,
on the ball,
but
it wasn't the basis of they were just utilizing his athletic skill.
Yes, and there's always these detractors that are just like, we're going to find something. And you're like, that's so stupid.
They said he ran too much and he scrambled too much, but his accuracy kind of improved every season.
Yep.
He had a very quick he had a gun, too. Great feet. Good size, and you could see, even though they might not have been in structure, making plays inside and outside the pocket as a passer. And you would think, okay, well, that's fine. You go into the 99 NFL draft, and we've talked about this before, Ricky Williams episode.
Yep.
Our Tim Couch episode, and why our
that
Tim
too.
Couch episode. It's known mostly for quarterbacks, and 5 of them go in the first round. The first 3 teams picking had a need at quarterback.
So Timmy goes first.
So Tim Couch goes first. Although there was one guy who really had Donovan's back as far as an evaluator, and that was Ernie Accorsi. Do you know who that is? He was the general manager in Baltimore that picked John Elway.
Oh, nice.
And he was later the general manager in New York when they traded for Eli Manning.
Those are some good quarterbacks.
So Ray Didinger, Philadelphia sports writer, had asked him leading into the draft what he thought of McNabb. And he said, he reminds me of Roger Staubach because he can do everything. And I think it was like in our Roger Craig episode, we had talked about like, just because a guy's not doing something doesn't mean he doesn't know or you can't teach him how to do it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I saw something on him that they said when he ran, it looked like a beautiful gazelle. And then he was like,
beautiful gazelle person.
And then he was like, I really should have popped my shirt off.
Oh, you really should. I mean, in those combine workouts, you really got to pop that shirt off.
You got to pop that shirt.
Just make sure you don't go to the Gatorade tent and get something with little papers floating in it.
How many McPoyles are coming out of there?
Look, he brought his fife to the combine.
What's that a jar of?
What is that a jar of? But he said he saw him at a dinner with a bunch of other guys who were participating in the combine. And he said, as far as the conversation, he said McNabb ran the show. All the conversation, all the energy revolved around him. He just had a way about him. The other guys, and remember, they're big timers themselves, deferred to him. He had that it factor we talk about. And I thought, that's a quarterback.
That's interesting.
So you're thinking probably top 3 because it's Cleveland, Philadelphia, Cincinnati. and they all take quarterbacks. Philadelphia has come. Had Cleveland not existed, they would have had the first pick in the draft because they're expansion. They're coming off a horrible 98 season. They've just hired Andy Reid as their head coach in the long ago. And, well, let's just say he's not welcomed fondly by any of the Philly fans that attend the draft.
It almost reminds me of when...
Because Donovan's there with his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost reminds me of when Kristaps Porzingis gets drafted by New York. And they're just like,
oh, God.
boo! Because they really did not want Donovan McNabb to be their second pick. You know what I mean? They whatever.
I'll go into this. So there's a group of fans called the Dirty 30.
Oh, yeah.
They went to the draft with Angelo Cataldi, a radio host, and Philadelphia mayor at the time, Ed Rendell. And I'm going to guess this group of Dirty 30 were either there or the descendants of people booing Santa in 1960.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were all they got all antsy in their pantsy to draft Ricky Williams at number 2, right?
Yes.
And what happens when they pick Donovan McNabb? They booed him mercilessly.
It's got to be a shitty feeling, too, because I bet you're just like, ooh, like getting picked so high in the draft and then just a rain of boos.
Oh, man.
Because it really, it outshines everybody that's cheering. Because it's like 30 drunk Philadelphia fans.
I mean, there's a precedent set, Chris, from... Not so much the Sixers. I mean, the Phillies, when that J.D. Drew thing was pretty bad. And the Dick Allen situation. Flyers, yeah, we can get weird with it with mullets and shooting pucks at halftime. But Eagles fans, they're known for behavior such as this. And it's really terrible. It's really terrible for him. Like, the day
That's what
he
I
should
mean.
be the most excited.
Yeah.
But as crappy as the boos are, he's going to a fantastic situation in Philadelphia because Andy Reid knows how to develop quarterbacks. They have Doug Peterson, who later became the only coach to win a Super Bowl in Philadelphia as the guy taking the beatings in front of him. And just a competent system of organization in place for him. So, like, would you rather go there or Cincinnati? I think you know the answer.
That's true.
So in 99, he's a backup.
Yeah, he's started, though, late in the season. That's the thing where they were like, they realized that he's going to be the quarterback. So I think he started 6 of the last 7 games.
He did, yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, next year he's just our starter.
Yeah, no. He was the first rookie quarterback to start since 1991. And he was the first new quarterback to win his first start as an Eagle since Ty Detmer in 1996. So they've had some... There was a very, without that, it would have been a very, without the sunglasses, Weekend at Bernie's would have been a dark, strange film.
It would have been a different movie.
Oh, my God. So it leads into 2000 where, like, he's definitely an enigma, but you have second-year quarterback with so much raw athletic ability. And by God, he takes the league by storm this year.
I was going to say, 2000 is his breakout season, where Pro Bowl, NFC Player of the Year, then, like you were saying, the Eagles are looking like a playoff team,
Yeah. Almost 3,400 yards passed, 21 touchdowns. There was a game against the Redskins because he's such a dual-threat quarterback. Like, he's not that Steve Young precision passer as far as accuracy in the West Coast offense, because he's still under 60%, and he's under 60% for a pretty large chunk of his career. But God, does he just make plays?
Yeah.
God, oh my God. Like, he's the offense. And we're not dealing with a really deep bench at wide receiver here right now. So
it gets better, but definitely
it gets better, but it gets worse. Like, it gets better.
That's so funny because that's so true.
Like, that's the only way to describe it. Oh, it's like the Frogurt on The Simpsons. Like, but it comes with a free Frogurt. That's good. The toppings contain potassium benzoate and Terrell Owens. That's bad.
That's bad.
So, but I did want to bring up, there was a game in 2000, November 26th against the Redskins. He contributed 90% of the team's total offense. It's ridiculous. His 125 rush yards were the most by a quarterback since Bobby Douglas in 1972. Because this is, mind you, this is before Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, all these guys that can run the ball for, like a fucking 100 yards a game.
This is like we were saying with our last episode with McNair. they're the type of quarterbacks that are the top quarterbacks right now, but they were almost anomalies when they were playing.
We talk about men of our time on this podcast. These are men
true.
ahead of their time.
Ooh, damn.
Yeah. So finished 11-5, get the wild card. New Year's Eve, 2000. They play Tampa Bay, and McNabb's the star of the game. Has all 3 touchdowns, passing and rushing, and just slaughter the Bucs, 21-3. Next week they do lose to the Giants in the divisional round. They got down 17-0 quick.
And
Seahorn had a pick 6 on McNabb at the beginning. They lose 20-10, but they haven't been this good since probably Buddy Ryan was there. To be quite honest, like if we're going in the DeLorean, it's probably back at 1988. So in 2001, they win their first NFC East title since 1988.
11-5. He passed for 3,000 yards.
Yeah,
you know, like it's obvious that was the right pick. Which then you go back to the draft night and you're like, oh, that's actually kind of funny at this point.
I always give Tim Couch a pass because of Cleveland and how towards the end of his run there, he did really well. Where anywhere else you could have put him,
he could have been a good quarterback anywhere else.
And then Culpepper before the injury, you're like, God, he was so good. But like Smith, McNown, like, oh my, Eagles did exactly what they should have done.
Yep.
So that year, like you said, over 3,000 yards passing, winning the division. They play in the wild card. They have to play in the wild card because they don't have a top 2 seed.
Yeah.
January 12th, 2002. In the first half, he has 2 TD passes to Chad Lewis and Deuce Staley, and they beat the Bucs again, 31. Both games at Veterans Stadium, by the way, in the freezing cold, where Tampa, to this point in their franchise's history, I want to bring up, has not won game
in the cold
temperatures.
Back against the Giants, right?
No. The next week they play the Bears.
The Bears.
So he's going back to his hometown there at Soldier Field in the divisional round. Yeah. Has over 300 yards total, or almost 300 yards total offense, 2 touchdowns passing, 1 touchdown rushing, and Bears won 13 games that year. They beat them by 14, 33-19. And then we get into the NFC title game. A lot of people didn't think they'd be there either. This is their first foray.
I was just going to say, because it really was like the breakout season for them as like a team where everyone was like, oh, this team could actually go all the way. 11-5, great, but not top, like you were saying. Yeah. You know what I mean?
They're putting the NFL on notice, and in this game, they're up 17-13 at halftime. McNabb has a 12-yard touchdown pass to
thought that was going to fall.
Pinkson. Oh, shoot. Excuse me. And then what ends up happening, you have the upset brewing in the second half, and Marshall Faulk takes over, scores 2 touchdowns. And
you want a drink?
Yeah. I'll take one. Thank you.
And they end up losing. They end up losing to the Ramalama Ding Dongs.
The St. Louis Ramalama Ding Dongs, 29-24. He threw a game-ending pick. At the end.
Game-ending pick at the end. I saw
that,
which
kind of sucks.
But you see, this team is looking like they're going to be a great team, and then he gets an unbelievably huge contract at the end of the season.
Oh, yeah. Heading into 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So, Offensive Player of the Month in September of that year. Has 140 points in 4 games, which is a franchise record. I thought was pretty awesome. But unfortunately,
Week 11
against the Arizona Cardinals, he gets sacked and breaks his fibula.
Yeah.
Right leg. They thought it was an ankle sprain. He played the rest of the damn game.
I was going to say, so they went into the locker room, taped up his ankle, because that's really what he thought it was just a high ankle sprain. Played the game. They x-rayed it, and they were just like, oh, no, you broke your leg. And then played 3 more quarters. That's the thing about McNabb, where you're just like, damn, dude.
He was tough, and he took, like we talked about in the McNair episode, or he also got the Roethlisberger, the Newton treatment.
Yep.
You run, you're going to get the crap beat out of you, and the refs aren't going to pay any attention.
The Shaq penis treatment.
The Shaq penis treatment. We don't know. We still don't know. God dang, man. Still makes the Pro Bowl, and to the Eagles' credit, A.J. Feely and Coy Detmer win 5 games.
I was going to say, come in and are able to put them back in the playoffs.
And the defense is really good this year, too.
Yep.
Like, they've got everything clicking. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Falcons first round.
Falcons first. So this was the Falcons team coming off beating Green Bay. They were the first team to ever win a playoff game at Lambeau.
Yeah.
With Mike Vick, who McNabb tried to recruit to Syracuse.
I know.
He had him on the recruiting visit.
He tries to recruit him later as his backup.
Yes, he does.
It's really interesting when you think about it, where he looks at a quarterback and he's like, he's going to fit into exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, like he's ridiculously tough and athletic. I think we're going to be okay.
I think we'll be okay.
They beat him 20-6. McNabb very efficient in this game. 20 of 30 for 247 yards and a touchdown. And they make the NFC title game. They're playing it. It's the last game at Veterans Stadium.
Yep.
The last game at that absolute cookie cutter dump with the jail underneath it. Tampa Bay is coming into this game because they're playing the Bucs. Third year in a row. Third time's a charm.
And it's not.
They have not won a game in their franchise's history, back to the creamsicle days, when it's 32 degrees or below.
Those are some amazing uniforms.
Oh, my God.
You think of
right?
old uniforms, and I bet for the time, men of their time, they were like, those are the stupidest uniforms. I was going to say something else. Those are the stupidest uniforms. And now looking back, you're like, those might be the most fun uniforms that have ever been.
You know how like certain songs have too many notes in them because of Peruvian?
No, I'm just kidding.
Because of Peruvian marching powder.
That's true.
Think those were like, and let's not make him like.
And this is in Florida.
This is in Florida. Like, and we're not talking like a Blackbeard or an intimidating pirate. We're gonna make him a little more flamboyant than Jack Sparrow. Is the best way to
that
describe
pirate
that.
goes to the clubs in Miami, if you know what I mean.
To do a lot of things with nose clams, where he can dance the night away.
Don't look at me. Look straight up.
We went back to bingo. So anyway, NFC Championship game. January 19th, 2003. They start amazing. Brian Mitchell has a great kickoff return. Deuce Staley, the first play from scrimmage, scores a touchdown. And you're thinking, it's happening. It's happening.
It's all happening.
It's all happening right now. And then the Bucs defense gets involved.
And takes over.
Big plays by Joe Jurevicius and Keyshawn Johnson. 20-10 in the third quarter, after a Grammatica field goal, after they're down 17-10 at halftime. And then with 6:31 in the fourth quarter, the Eagles start a drive, and they get down to the Tampa Bay 10. They're down 10 points with 3:27 left, so there's still hope. McNabb throws the pick six to Rondé Barber. He goes 92 yards. They win 27-10. One thing I wanted to bring up about this game, a lot of people crap on Donovan McNabb for his postseason performances and things like that. I think a lot. Is it his fault in instances? Of course it is. But if you're Andy Reid, that dude, until he got Patrick Mahomes, let's be honest, that dude was a choker, an ultimate choker.
Yeah.
When I look at McNabb's stats and see he threw the ball 49 times against the Buccaneers, it's stupid. That's asinine. The only way you could, you couldn't even beat him. The only way you had a shot against that D is their defensive line is small. That was the one thing that you could do. And you look at their last loss of the regular season against Pittsburgh. You just steady diet of running it. You can only run at them. That's it. But 49 passes
is way too much.
That's on the coaching staff. That's not on McNabb.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But 2003, what a roller coaster this was, Chris. What a roller coaster this was. They start slow. They're 0-2.
Yep.
Lose to Tampa Bay and New England. And, oh boy, Donovan, he's caught in the crossfire. You want to talk about it?
Of just you know when some people in journalism just have the most integrity?
The most. No one would ever question this gentleman's integrity.
Good old Rush. I'll tell you what's interesting. My grandfather used to listen to Rush Limbaugh all the time.
Oh, yeah?
And I remember this happening, and he just goes, I don't even know what he's talking about. It was literally like that because Rush comes on and he's just talking so bad about Donovan McNabb as just like a player in the, like how he's overrated, how he's like, there's so many things. And I remember my grandpa just being like, no, that's so stupid.
So I wrote this down.
Okay.
He comes on, and I think it's NFL Primetime. That's when they brought him on because ESPN. I mean, you've made a lot of recent stupid decisions, but this might have been the one that started it all. Where Rush Limbaugh states after the Eagles 0-2 start, sorry to say this, I don't think he's been that good from the get-go. I think what we've had here is a little social concern in the NFL. The media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. There is a little hope invested in McNabb, and he got a lot of credit for the performance of his team that he didn't deserve. The defense carried this team.
Which, just to like...
Wasn't he putting up 90% of the team's total offense in certain games, Rush? I'm just... Oh, God.
Just to read between the lines, and this is such a Rush thing to like be like, he's literally saying, this guy is the quarterback of the Eagles because he's black. Obviously, he's not good enough to be the quarterback of the Eagles. And then exactly what you're saying was just like, remember that game where he literally had 90% of all offense that the entire team did? It was like, oh, yeah. Why did they get to the NFC Championship?
The only thing that would have made this worse is if he did it in a Foghorn Leghorn impression.
That would actually, no, take that back, because that would have been fucking hilarious.
We're just a couple old men, and because I cut the brakes. I'll fill you up all sorts of good.
Tiger Woods is coming over to feel my feet.
Oh, God. The Eagles respond, though.
Yes.
And I think I'm not saying these comments had everything to do with it, because granted, Tampa Bay is defending Super Bowl champion. New England's going to win the Super Bowl this year. It's two tough teams out the gate.
Yeah.
But they respond, man. Like, they go 12-4. They win 12 of their last 14 games. McNabb makes another Pro Bowl. Over 3,200 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 3 on the ground. His wide receiver core, though, man, is not doing it.
No.
I mean,
it's not.
Pinkston, James Thrash.
Like you were saying, they don't have the one.
Kind of like Steve McNair.
Yes, exactly.
You mean Kevin? Oh, no, Kevin Dyson? You mean not Randy Moss?
Not Randy? Hey, not Randy.
They have a first-round bye. And this is an all-timer playoff game.
I was going to say, them versus the Packers is... It's one of the comebacks that you're like, oh, that was so sweet.
So, January 11th, 2004, they're playing Green Bay and the old dong slinger. Brett Favre come to town. And they go down 14-0 in the first quarter. McNabb fumble almost nets him perfect field position to convert one of them. They ended up scratching and clawing their way, Philadelphia, to tie it with 2 TD passes by McNabb in the fourth quarter. They're down 17-14, though, with 2:21 to go and from their own 20, and McNabb just wheels them down the field.
Yeah.
The famous play, they're 4th and 26. The game's on the line. The game is on the line here, and McNabb completes a 28-yarder to Freddie Mitchell to keep the drive alive.
To get that first down.
They end up driving down to the Green Bay 19 and tying it with 10 seconds to go. They start overtime and they get the ball, but they go 3 and out.
Yeah.
But then in such wonderful postseason dong slinger fashion, just throws up a cake easy meatball to Brian Dawkins, puts him in field goal range, and David Akers wins the game. And I did want to add, 2 TD passes, 248 yards passing in this game for McNabb. He went for over 100 on the ground. He's the first to do it in the postseason.
That's wild.
Yeah. Like he pulled out all the stops to bring him to a victory. So, like, you know.
All the offense goes through him.
But Chris, it's all the defense, right? I mean, he hasn't been that good from the get-go.
From the get-go.
God.
It's one of those minority hires, if you know what I mean.
Say so. There's a DEI at quarterback for the Eagles. God.
Oh, that's so good.
What a time to be alive. Jesus Christ. There's only like 20
And there wasn't such a big backlash from him saying that. Do you know what I mean?
It was literally ESPN took heat and they fired him.
Yes.
But it lasted like no longer than like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And then it just went away.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if social media was around then?
Oh, my God. They would have torched him.
It would have been like, oh, my God, just lit up the whole thing. Anyway, following week, they play Carolina.
Yep.
Do you know how Carolina got here?
No. Who did they beat?
we did an episode on it. It was that Rams game.
Oh, nice.
So that's how they ended up spiderweb there.
The Panthers coming in for this AFC Championship game.
And they're gassed. They just played that double overtime game against St. Louis.
Yep. The Ramalama Ding Dongs.
This is one I think McNabb needs to have back. This is just
because it
granted, Carolina's defense at this point was money, and their running game with Davis and Foster was really good. In the second quarter, though, McNabb tore some rib cartilage.
Yeah, I saw that.
Sacked by Mike Rucker. Threw 3 picks, and they even replaced him with Coy Detmer for a point.
Because
it was just
had
ugly.
to, yeah. His, I feel like his injury, where sometimes he's like, I want to stay in the game, that was probably a mistake.
Yeah, and what sucks is Carolina's playing ball control. Delhomme only threw 14 passes in this whole game. Which it was 14-3. I won't call it necessarily an ugly game, but it's definitely not the most thrill-seeking.
You're not rewatching that game.
So 3 NFC Championship games in a row lost. But remember how we talked about how he'd get a new receiver?
That's right.
And how it's like, oh, this is the.
So he gets one of the crazy ones.
He gets one, but Chris, the crazy ones are always so hot. I mean, T.O. on that hot crazy scale.
That's true. It's on that hot crazy scale. That's fucking beautiful.
At worst, the 3rd best receiver in NFL history.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, the hot crazy scale.
The hot crazy scale.
I mean, let's be honest.
So Terrell Owens comes in.
Did want to add he's the 3rd quarterback ever to lose 3 straight title games.
Oh, nice.
Kenny Stabler and Danny White, who's not Roger Staubach, not Troy Aikman. So T.O. coming in just completely revamps and restyles this offense.
Like we were saying,
plays are there.
Yeah, they have a one option, and they have a long ball threat now, which I felt like they really didn't have before. So now it opens up a bunch of shit.
So career high in completion percentage, 64%. 31 touchdowns, a career high, 3,875 yards passing. Only 7 touchdowns. They start 7-0. They finish 13-3. Really, their only hiccup along the way was when they got, ass blasted by Pittsburgh, and you had that first confrontation between Owens and McNabb on the sideline, where
they're jawing at each other,
following him and getting. But in Week 15, T.O. gets hurt against Dallas. He breaks his leg. So it's Donovan's show the rest of the way.
Yeah, it's
not knowing if he'll come back. So they. Opening round, they have the #1 seed, obviously.
Yeah.
They beat the Vikings.
They beat the Vikings.
Has a great day. 286 yards, 2 touchdowns. They win 27-14. They have the title game against
the Falcons.
Michael Vick again.
Yeah, his buddy, pretty much.
They scored 13 unanswered in the second half to win 27-10. 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, and NFC champions for Donovan McNabb. First time, yeah.
1 out of 4, not bad.
1 out of 4 ain't bad.
That's right. So they go up against the Pats in a Super Bowl, and the thing that I saw about this game, which it's interesting when you think about what opens up the passing game, the Patriots literally were like, no, you can throw the ball, but you're not going to run it for shit.
Yeah, you can pass it on us, and let's see how well you do in the red zone.
Yes.
Essentially. And T.O. comes back, and he has an amazing game. 122 yards on a broken leg.
Essentially a broken,
But what ends up happening, because the run game is non-existent, Chad Lewis misses the game entirely because of an injury at tight end, and then Pinkston leaves at halftime because of dehydration. So it's a game of missed opportunities. And for McNabb, to be honest with you, not a great game.
Well, you look at these Patriots Super Bowl wins, I feel like almost every single time you're like, that quarterback should have won.
Yeah,
that team should have won that one, damn it.
Like those teams Michael Jordan played. Like the fucking dream team.
Literally, like the teams that Michael Jordan played. Hakeem's like, I asked him to take a break so I could win one.
David Robinson. He retired. Thank God. And then you have Karl Malone going, I wish I had that title.
Karl Malone.
Going to the Malone zone.
We don't want to go there.
No one wants, Chris Hansen waits in the Malone zone with the trap set, I guess is what we've...
Come in, Karl Malone. Take a seat on the couch.
You like some sweet tea? I know you do, Carl. I know you do. So he throws 3 picks in the game, one of which was in the fourth quarter at the New England 24, which they really could have used that. I mean, just any sort of points on that drive.
Well, I feel like, and this might be, Andy Reid at this point, but like I feel like they were almost out-coached.
Oh, they were. Andy Reid up until
recently.
Up until the Mahomes deodorant was not occasionally, consistently out-coached in the playoffs.
Yes.
Consistently by coaches who he's supposedly so much better than.
Exactly.
So let's get that straight. One of the narratives, though, from this game was there's the myth that McNabb was barfing in the huddle
he was sick.
on the final drive. There's no evidence to back this up.
He says it's bullshit. There's no video footage, and at this time, we have video footage of almost everything happening on the field.
We have video footage of Janet Jackson's titties. I mean,
that happened.
Wardrobe malfunction the year before. We know.
We counted the number of lights on that chandelier on her titty.
I mean, I saw that Justin Timberlake under the arm booby scoop. Credit to Rody Reynolds for that one.
Nice.
But it does drive a rift between him
and Owens.
Because, there's one thing you learn in life. Don't give mentally unstable people a leg to stand on, or even a perceived leg to stand on above you.
Can I be honest? It was a problem because McNabb wasn't Owens' quarterback.
Yeah.
That's my quarterback.
You want the guy that drops extra points.
Yeah.
And ruins broadcast with Jim Nantz. That's T.O.'s quarterback. That's his teammate.
That's his teammate. That's my teammate.
Oh, my God. So in 2005, they bar Owens from the facilities. He's working out in his driveway. And McNabb's just there like, I'm fighting through a sports hernia. I'm playing in front of a lot of people who would rather have another quarterback here.
If you know what I mean.
If you know what I mean. You don't have a statue for Joe Frazier. But he's September's Offensive Player of the Month. He's killing it. Even while he's hurt, he's leading the NFL through passing yards through Week 7.
Without Owens.
Without him,
just to make that clear, because like we were saying, he didn't have a great receiver core. The last season, when Owens came in and like stepped in, you could almost see it being like, oh, this is what they missed. Now Owens is out because he's being a fucking dickhead. And
this is like Antonio Brown without CTE. Where you're just like, what are you doing, T.O.? Or with A.B., you're just like, it makes sense.
Yep.
Vontae's perfect scrambled your brains. I'm sorry, buddy. But like, no, we get it. But
we get it.
The T.O. thing is just, Weekend at Bernie's. That would have been a dark, disturbing tale without the sunglasses. Without the McNabb sunglasses.
This is true.
It's a very stupid thing to do, T.O. So, November 14th, though, 2005, McNabb is hurt. On Monday Night Football and basically iced the rest of the season. They finished 6-10.
I was going to say 2005 was not a great season, especially coming off of a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't want to add about the NFC during this time period, it is so much weaker than the AFC top to bottom. Like, this is Philadelphia's, if there is any window
it's now
to just notch those home playoff games and, grab a Super Bowl or two, it's this. Following season, they're 5-4, so they're in playoff contention. And McNabb
is
trying to make he's trying to make a play, man.
Yep.
And that's the thing. He put his body on the line, ends up tearing his ACL and his meniscus in his right knee. Jeff Garcia takes over, though, oddly enough, in a backup role and finishes the year, sends him to the play. He wins a playoff game.
Yep.
They end up losing to the Saints in the divisional round in 2006. 2007, they're 8-8.
Yeah, he's back to action, but I feel like because they thought it was going to be a year.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting him on the fast track to come back from that because it was a ridiculously bad ACL tear.
To his credit, though, he's over 61% passing, and over 3,300 yards and 19 TDs off an ACL. And it wasn't like ACL in training camp. This is like midway through the season, As far as time off, they did in 2007, I did want to add, in the second round of that year's draft, they take Kevin Cobb out of Houston to be their quarterback of the future.
Yeah.
possibly on his way out, because that was the talk heading into 2008 with McNabb was we're kind of coming to the end here.
And he's starting to say stuff in media. That's the other thing where it's like media, I feel like almost always in Philadelphia was like, this guy's out next season. Now he's starting to, and I think this is when 2007, 2008 is when he starts trying to bring Vic in as his backup or like start suggesting that.
It's actually 2009.
Is it 9? Okay.
Because that's when he gets out of Leavenworth.
Oh, yes.
Because that's
good point. It's like, you know this guy?
So,
where'd you play last year? California Penal.
What happened? Dog fighting. But why would you do that?
Why would you fight a dog? No, I was making them fight. That's even worse.
You got the matching bracelet? I gave someone a matching bracelet in Leavenworth if you say something like that again. So 2008, it's basically his last chance. Week 3, I did want to add, they played Pittsburgh, and he had his 176th at the time touchdown pass, which made him the all-time leader in Eagles history.
Yeah, Eags.
For the Eagles. There was an interesting moment that happened on November 16th in 2008 where they tied the Bengals, and McNabb famously admitted he didn't know a game could end in a tie.
Yep, which is really interesting. From not just a football player, but literally from your general
quarterback?
Yeah.
Like that. Look, I get you can't have ties in the postseason.
Yeah.
But come on, man.
Come on.
I know this isn't soccer, but like it's still ties.
Yeah.
Like it's ties. Later that season, this is when I distinctly remember this, where people were literally throwing dirt on him in his career. They lost 36-7 to Baltimore, and he was benched. Not because he was hurt. They benched him for Cobb to finish the game. They ended up, though, because of it, rallying to win 4 of their last 5. And to his credit, this might have been his best season. Career highs in completions. He had 3,916 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, and then another 2 on the ground. They end up getting the last seed in the playoffs that
Wild
year.
card against the Vikings.
I think Asante, that was the Asante Samuel pick 6 game. 300 yards passing and a touchdown, which is great. Next week they play the Giants, who are the 1 seed. Granted, Plexico Burress isn't playing for gun-related reasons. 217 pass yards and a TD with a rush TD. They win 23-11, and they make it to the NFC title game again, and they play who, Chris?
The Cardinals.
Kurt Warner.
I was just going to say it's Kurt and the Cardinals, and
Larry Fitzgerald was just inhuman.
I was just going to say
he wasn't of this planet. For
might have been his best game.
For those 4 playoff games that he had, like from the beginning, from Atlanta to who did they play? Carolina to Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. That topped anything Jerry Rice had. And he won a Super Bowl MVP in '88. So anyway, they trailed 24-6 at halftime, the Eagles, but Donovan led them back. They were winning in the 4th quarter
and couldn't close it out.
And you know what's crappy is, like, I think 2007 was when they drafted Deshaun Jackson. So they're finally like reloading these guys like at receiver who aren't T.O. and
who aren't a huge problem.
He had 375 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, but they lost 32-25. At 2009, so he will have started every year of the 20-aughts as the Eagles quarterback. Makes the Pro Bowl.
I was going to say still a good year.
Over 3,500 passing yards, 22 touchdowns. Make the playoffs as a wild card.
But they lose to Dallas.
This had to have hurt. This was Dallas's first postseason win since the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Since they won the Super Bowl like 15 years ago. They lose 34-14 on January 9th, 2010. And now we get into, it's almost Russell Wilson in a way where it just goes away so fast.
Well, so I thought it was actually interesting because there was tons, and you're right, this is when he was like, hey, you should bring in Vic to back me up.
Oh, okay, so I'll bring it up right now. In 2009, Michael Vick is released from prison for dogfighting. He's the one that convinced Andy Reid, like, you need a backup, right? Even if I'm starting, you can put him in packages and he can do things for us. So he really went to bat for Michael Vick more than anybody, because there was only one other team that was going to sign him, Pittsburgh. And it was only because Mike Tomlin's from the same part of Virginia Michael Vick is from. But, going to bat for someone like that in that situation, that takes a lot of...
It takes,
the amount of cachet that he must have had was pretty high, like big. So.
So on April 1st, I saw Andy Reid literally said McNabb is going to be the quarterback for the Eagles next year without a doubt.
Yeah.
April 4th, they trade him to the Redskins.
Within the division, which is just like...
There's so much with that where you're like, what the hell is going on?
Well, I think the naughty secret was because he was the starter until he got hurt in 2010.
Yep.
Kevin Cobb was the guy.
Yep.
And then Vic was just going to be the gadget backup.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay McNabb all of this money. And I don't know if Reed knew if he was washed or not, or he just wanted to get... Because you don't trade somebody within your division who can come back to...
That's my thing. You. And he does have a bad season with the Redskins.
And this is Mike Shanahan's first year with Washington?
It's one of those interesting things where you look at the Eagles organization, you're like, oh, they were maybe smarter than us on that one. Because I remember this trade and being like, how are you going to trade him in your own division after he did have a great... year in 2009.
And then you're like, oh, well, he's been beat to hell.
Yep.
The Redskins are crappy. And Dan Snyder's the owner. Maybe. I did want to add, though, October 3rd that year, he makes his first trip back to Philly, and they win the game. And the fans gave him a standing ovation.
Yeah, which is rare in Philly.
Which, I mean, you gotta
have some respect on your name for that, because that's ridiculous.
You might need to commit some crimes that aren't good.
They assaulted Santa.
They really did. I'm surprised they didn't throw hoagies at him.
They killed Christmas.
A little bit of respect. On November 15th, 2010, he signs a 5-year extension for $78 million, contingent upon he's not traded or cut at the end of the 2010 season.
And
what happens?
He gets traded.
He gets traded
to the Vikings.
To the Vikings to basically be there until Christian Ponder's ready.
Yeah, kind of.
But what we found out about Christian Ponder, he's never ready.
Yeah.
He wasn't even ready.
He wasn't ready to
State.
step up. No.
Which basically sucks. I don't know if you saw the story, how he got the number 5 back in Minnesota. So the Vikings punter Chris Cluey said, I'll give you number 5 if you make a $5,000 donation to my charity, promote the band that I'm playing in during like just one press conference, and buy him an ice cream cone.
Ooh, I like that last offer.
I like that deal. That's great. If you do all 3, just like, can you just buy me an ice cream?
That's a great offer.
I love it. They started 1-5, and he got benched.
Yeah.
With Minnesota, so it's kind of unfortunate as far as...
And then retires.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if he could... But you know what? I think everyone now is kind of under this false narrative that because someone like Tom Brady can play to 45, that everyone can do it. Like even Peyton Manning by 39-40 was washed. So like maybe it's just the norm is 35, 36.
I was just going to say, even that's old, though, how far Peyton went, because I do feel like you could start to see the decline at 34, 35, and it drops off so quick where you're just like, oh, he's done.
Yeah. Oh, easily. Yeah. But Donovan McNabb, I want to say this. He's the best quarterback in that franchise's history.
Yeah.
I mean, did he win a title like a Norm Van Brocklin or a Nick Foles off the... No, he didn't. Was he as electric as someone like a Randall Cunningham? No. Well, not necessarily as electric, because that dude was like ridiculous during his prime. But he's the best, and the numbers put it out there. He has the quarterback passing records essentially for passing yards, 37,276, touchdowns, 234, 29 rushing touchdowns. He's leading in wins, 98, completions, attempts, yards passing, touchdown passes, and game-winning drives.
So pretty much every category.
So what I'm saying is, everyone that booed him,
I know.
You had to travel from Philadelphia to New York, most of whom painted their faces like dumbasses, and boo this man before he played it down. And do you know how crappy your team was before that? Between Randall Cunningham and Donovan McNabb? Those are some dark days.
Those are some dark days.
Those are some
And
weekend at Bernie's days.
to be honest, he came right in and started to win. So,
Yeah.
and he still had a bunch of heat on him. You know what I mean? But yeah, Donovan McNabb, I completely agree. Best quarterback in Eagles history.